So, we've reached the 9th installment of our book, The Dying of the Light. Let's have a look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? Anyway, okay, so Dying of the Light is a bit tricky one to summarize in any real order because it's actually the first book where we move back and forth on the timeline. We look at present day antics as we look at present day antics as well as 5 years in the future with Valkyrie. But Valkyrie is Dark Quest. Or is it her broken reflection from an enchanted mirror? Or is it someone else entirely and the description is stupidly similar to what Valkyrie looks like? What's happening? Yeah, it gets a bit like that through a good maybe 2/3 of the actual book, which actually shake it up a bit compared to the other books, and it causes you to really pay attention to what's happening. Like when we jump back to present time and find Skulduggery teaming up with the Reflection I just mentioned, and several others to track down Dark Quest and find a way to defeat her and free Valkyrie. While in our 5-year leap forward, we look at our Valkyrie, or who we presume is our Valkyrie look-alike, is getting heavily involved in a young man's life in order to actually get close to a deranged magical serial killer. Valkyrie is still possessed by Dark Quest for the beginning of the book. In an attempt to separate her from Dark Quest, Valkyrie gets trapped in a soul catcher and Dark Quest is in full possession of her body. You might be thinking, I thought Dark Quest was her true name, the name of her soul. That sealing surgery that she kind of had pretty much separated her current consciousness, Valkyrie, from her true name, Dark Quest. And that's why they kind of act like separating entities, which is actually really cool and a much better explanation than I thought I would give. Moving on. Skulduggery begins to then pick up small hints that it's really Dark Quest pretending to be Valkyrie. She's kind of moved back in, taken her place. And he actually organizes a trap to switch the two back to where they're supposed to belong. The plan kind of half works. Valkyrie is returned to her body, but Dark Quest kind of manages to escape, hopping from host to host, like literally burning them out, like from the inside, one by one. They just can't withstand that kind of power until she reaches Stephanie, Valkyrie's reflection. And it ends up killing her and taking over her body. So we now have 2 Valkyrie lookalikes. When they were extracted, Dark Quest actually took all of Valkyrie's magic when she was removed from her, leaving her essentially mortal. Valkyrie travels to Malevolence Dimension, or the Kingdom of the Wicked, as we saw earlier, with Skulduggery to bring back their version of Ravel. Now, if you remember from just a moment ago, Ravel was essentially put in a state of constant agony by Dark Quest. And he's been kept that way. So they need bait, essentially. They need bait. So they shunt into that alternate dimension, steal their alternate version of him, and bring him back. In the unfolding events, Valkyrie is caught in a type of magical explosion and actually kickstart her surge very early. She regains her magic, but she's no longer able to access elemental or necromancy, and discovers her powers are actually to be able to produce like white lightning. She can float, produce energy shields, blast, all that kind of good stuff. Real cool. Valkyrie helps in the preparation for the final fight against Dark Quest. She's actually given a tattoo of the Mirian Sigil by China. This sigil grants like temporary... Ooh, itchy nose. This sigil grants temporary invulnerability and super strength and all that kind of jazz. Valkyrie goes up against Dark Quest. When the sigil is basically about to time out, Dark Quest has Valkyrie defeated. Like, it's done. But she's saved by Lord Vile and Melancholia Sinclair. Yes, Melancholia! Dark Quest sets off a devastating explosion, destroying like a quarter of the city, which Valkyrie survives thanks to the last handful of seconds of the Mirian sigil. Vile survives because Skulduggery is already dead, but Melancholia doesn't. What? Our poor sweet death worshipper. She always gets it so hard, you know? I feel it. I feel it. Afterwards, Valkyrie heads out to find 2 items. One is called the Death Touch Gauntlet. The other one is called a Sunburst. She eventually finds her parents in the ruins of the city, mind you, with her little sister Alice. Valkyrie asks to borrow Alice to provide a protective charm over her. Her parents believe it. They're panicking. Go for it. Do whatever you need to actually save our other daughter. Valkyrie actually subsequently kills Alice with the Death Touch Gauntlet so that she can claim the Scepter of the Ancients. From what I can remember, I think maybe only one person can use it at a time, or people of a particular bloodline are the only ones able to actually wield it, and I think she lost her right to it when she lost her magic? Can't quite remember, but she actually kills her infant baby sister with the Death Touch Gauntlet and then claim the Scepter of the Ancient. She then revives her with the Sunburst. Oh, thank God. But that's still pretty fucked up. Valkyrie is horrified at what she's done, and she suffers severe PTSD and emotional trauma for the rest of the books, which you can imagine that would fuck anybody up. Dark Quest is defeated with some ingenious use of memory alteration and opening a portal into the dimension of the Faceless Ones. Yes, those chaotic, formless entities of pure destruction that everyone has been trying to avoid. They just open up a wormhole and yeet her through. Yeet! Valkyrie attempts to sacrifice herself to stop the accelerator from overloading, mostly out of guilt, but Skulduggery pulls her back, telling her not to be silly. He then promptly walks forward. In that last tender moment, she blurts out, "I love you," before he actually just throws Rabble, like, straight through and into the machine. And he smirkingly and smart-assingly says, "A soul willingly given." Ha ha ha. And then he teases her about it for like the next 3 years. Alright. A few years later, Valkyrie is being tracked down by 2 killers called Cadaverous Gant, I got there eventually, and Jeremiah Wallow. A mortal boy who buys her shopping by the name of Denny attempts to help her, but she actually uses him as bait to lure Gant for Gant, as he's lured into a literal hell house. That's his magic. He infiltrates a space and he turns it into like a fucking nightmare. And yeah, so she uses Denny as bait to go after them and kick their ass. In the process of rescuing Denny and trying to take down these 2 nutjob serial killers, Jeremiah actually dies in the process. We don't feel so bad. He's a serial killer. After this, Valkyrie finally decides to move back home to Ireland and try and put the pieces of her life back together. And that's the end of this book. Oh my God. Book number fucking 10. Resurrection. Whew, here we go. We begin this book shortly after the last timeline, seeing with Valkyrie living a quiet, secluded life in the house inherited from her uncle, working through her PTSD and her depression and all her emotional issues. That I do feel. But she's roped back into the adventuring life when Skulduggery comes a-knocking and asks for her help to find an accomplice of his, a spy called Pt3. He was investigating Rawhaven's Corville Academy as a potential recruitment pawn for an anti-sanctuary group. With Temper missing, Skulduggery needs someone they can trust to keep tabs on any suspicious activity within the academy. The two approach Omen darkly. Omen is a shy third-year boy who is actually the twin brother of the Chosen One, another Augur darkly, another child of prophecy, supposedly who's going to change the world and save it. Yay! Valkyrie is kind of super against this with all of her own experiences as a teenager being lumped into a very dangerous lifestyle, but it happens anyway because shut up, Valkyrie, it's a story. During this time, an unknown group infiltrate and take control of a floating island of Cold Heart Prison to basically gain access to a heart, a living beating heart inside a box. Yeah, they take over a whole prison. It's floating in the air. It's just out and about, hiding away from mortals, filled with like the worst of the worst. And someone infiltrates it and takes it over just to get to a heart in the box. Due to a little bit of strange behavior from Valkyrie, Skulduggery believes she may have some sensitive powers, some psychic powers, and takes her to Cassandra Farrow's old home to use as a focus. And she actually has her first vision of the future involving many horrible things, including friends dead or dying, the Darkly brothers, and a silver-haired woman announcing herself as the Princess of the Darklands. I don't know why I crossed my leg, you can't see it. Omen reports his first suspect, his history teacher, Mr. Lilt, who has his own little club of anti-mortal teenagers as an academic group, or under the guise of an academic group. After a bit of digging on Skulduggery's part, he discovers papers published by Lilt that outline the blaming of mortals for certain parts of magic society, and discovering one of his former associates, Richard Melior, a very powerful neurotic, which we explained earlier. A neurotic is someone who has undisciplined, unfocused, and dangerous magic. But he is a powerful one, but he is also a healer who can resurrect recently deceased individuals. Oh my god, resurrection! I'm sorry. When our two detectives find Melior, he knows he's been made, and a few anti-sanctuary members arrive to erase any witnesses, essentially. A man in a black leather and rubber suit announces himself as Leaf and engages in a fight with Skulduggery, where Leaf unexpectedly emerges victorious. They run away with the aid, Skulduggery and Valkyrie run away with the aid of Fletcher, as per usual, but are actually followed by the anti-sanctuary's teleporter. They have their own, and Fletcher actually gets stabbed in the back and horribly wounded. Skulduggery is also pretty badly fucked up, by the way. Like, he had shattered bones and dislocated joints, which is kind of bad for a person who's quite literally just a skeleton. Our duo track down Melior again after they've been patched up, and learn he's actually being forced to help this anti-sanctuary group against his will. I'm going to call them the ASG. Yeah, the anti-sanctuary. Yeah, ASG. That is so much better. The ASG have actually kidnapped his husband, Savant Vega, and for 5 years has done everything that they have asked, and now they need him finally for someone's resurrection. Woo! Throughout the events of the investigation, Skulduggery is actually corrupted by one of the ASG's members, Azedadine Smoke, and Skulduggery actually turns against Valkyrie and even attempts to try and kill her. Smoke's ability causes a type of personality switch, making people lose their morals, inhibitions, their love and friendship towards people, etc. And the people he corrupts are kind of under his control, but he has to keep corrupting them to keep it going. He has to keep trying to infect them constantly, and it gets harder and harder the longer and longer it is. But it's very cool. He leaves, and Skulduggery actually ends up leaving and joining the ASG after he's been corrupted. Valkyrie continues the case on her own alongside our aforementioned Pt3 and Omen Darkly, our resident teenage dumbass in this book. She finds out that one of the administrators inside the Ice Sanctuary is actually a traitor working with the ASG. And she reports this to the now Supreme Mage, not even an elder, but a Supreme Mage, China Sorrows. Omen, our resident fuck-up of this book, actually manages to sneak into one of the meetings of the academic group and manages to hitch a ride on their teleporter with them into Cold Heart Prison, that floating island. Valkyrie is also captured and taken to Cold Heart separately, and through great efforts managed to actually break through to Skulduggery and end his corruption. The three fight against the ASG, but the tides are turned against them in favor of the ASG when the prisoners are released and overwhelm them, giving the ASG plenty of time to essentially sacrifice several prisoners to help resurrect a heart in the box into a woman with beautiful long silver hair, and she announces herself as Abyssnia. Like the Abyss, Abyssnia. Yeah, you get it. Cold Heart Prison is then stormed by sanctuary agents from around the world, and the prisoners are recaptured, but the ASG do manage to escape. After all is said and done, there is a nice little touching moment where Valkyrie decides it's actually time to come back full time, be on the team, be with Skulduggery, and do what she does best, which is kick ass. Kick ass. And that is Resurrection. I got through that fast. Let's keep going. Our 11th book that I'm doing, oh my fucking god. Our 11th book is Midnight. Yes. So this one's pretty interesting because I feel like it's a bit of a setup book, if that makes any sense. We don't take any huge step forward with any of the main storylines that we've had over the many years of this series. But we do have a substantial amount of story to propel us into the next book with solid footing. Essentially, yeah, it's a setup book. It lays the foundation for what's happening next in the next book and the books after. Allow me. Omen thought that his association with Skulduggery and Valkyrie would lead to further adventure and had been eagerly awaiting their call until he realized it just wasn't going to fucking happen. Instead, he stays on the sidelines, watching his brother, Orga, go on adventures as he prepares for his role as the Chosen One. When a portal to another dimension actually opens up, sending through a flood of mortal refugees. He sees this as his chance to continue doing good and seek the possible thrills of life. Skulduggery and Valkyrie are still on the hunt for Abyssnia, who actually has gone looking for her son, and there's a nice little plot twist about who the father might be. Actually, there's several plot twists about who the father might be, but she's gone looking for her son, who's actually been locked away and tortured for at least the last 60 years. After the several year period of guilt that Valkyrie has been going through, she begins reconnecting with her family and, more importantly, her little sister, who she did kill and resurrect. Starting off with a little bit of babysitting, as all good big sisters do. I know, my sister did it for me and I was a fucking nightmare. But when there is a break in the case and she needs to leave, there is only one person she can truly trust with such a task. Poor Omen. He's been resorted to babysitter. But Omen really isn't up to the task, as it figures out, as we learn that Cadaverous Gant, a psychopath from the last book, has caught up to them and actually kidnaps little Alice, Valkyrie's sister, and is using her as bait. Our duo come together to have to overcome a series of challenges set by Gare to actually retrieve Alice, and so that he and Valkyrie can have a final showdown. But before that, all the challenges have to be met by midnight, or Alice dies. I actually like this whole kidnap, scavenger hunt theme. It made the book really interesting compared to the others. We didn't see this. We've seen a lot of action-packed, ass-kicking, blackmail, but I've never seen the whole, never seen a bit of a Taken situation. Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked the feel of this one. This one felt different. As you can see, it's short compared to the other monsters that are here. These are all massive. But this one's a quick read. It's a setup book. It's very powerful. But apart from Valkyrie having to essentially rescue her sister from a serial killer, in this book we also see the introduction of Sebastian Tau, who is dressed as and presents himself and calls himself the Plague Doctor. And he slowly builds himself a little cult of neighborhood weirdos around Rawhaven, to work on actually bringing back Dark Quest into our reality, believing she will actually be the savior of them all. They think she's going to save the world, not destroy it. Another storyline set up in this book, which I actually really liked, is President Flannery, which is a clear mockery of Trump. The way they've described his character, he is a total fucking rip into Trump. Flannery has a small elite staff of sorcerers that helped him rig the election and win, but they themselves are working on their own. They're working on their own thing. You know, this is a give and take. They've put Flannery in a position of power, but then they're manipulating him to have certain bills passed that they like and all sorts of things. It looks very good. I like the little political intrigue into real life politics. This isn't a particularly hard one to digest story-wise. Most of it being focused on the kidnapping, making it quick, enjoyable read, and the twist at the end when we see Alice, Valkyrie's little sister, she's actually missing a part of her soul. Oh, heartbroken. But yeah, this is a great one as well. The last book of the series that I've read is Bedlam. All things are going to hell. Alright. And it starts in the classic way all these books starts with our two favourite smart-ass characters about to investigate and annoy the living shit out of someone looking for clues about a magical drug called Splash. Followed quickly by a fight scene with some corrupt cops and Valkyrie freaking out about trying to find Dr. Nee, that creature, that spindly creature who performed the experiments. He's the only one who could probably help her fix her sister's soul. So that's all in the first handful of chapters. We got a drug investigation, we got corrupt cops, and then we got Valkyrie freaking the fuck out, trying to find Nee. We see a little bit of plotting by Abyssnia, our beautiful silver-haired nightmare. Now she has her son and wanting to take revenge on his torturer. Alright, so try this on for size. So, I wonder if we can read this. I'm gonna hop on the table. Oh. So, Mevelin as the biggest, baddest mofo around town. Always was, always will be. Seraphina Day, I don't know if you can read my squiggly writing, but Seraphina Day is his wife. And Abyssnia, oh, I got too much reflection. And Abyssnia was actually Malevolent's lover. Oh, I should have an arrow. Yes. So, Abyssnia was Malevolent's lover. And then Kason was Abyssnia's son. Also, it's proposed throughout this book and the last book that Kason is actually Skulduggery's son. But we'll get back to that later. Now, the whole story that's happening in this book, or the whole plot, is based around the fact that Kaysen killed Mevelin. He just fucking wiped him out. Biggest, baddest motherfucker in town. Killed him. Seraphina Day didn't like that. Because obviously, this little turd just killed her husband. So, she tortures him for hundreds and hundreds of years. Tortures him into insanity. Now, the reason Visnia was a heart in the box for hundreds of years is because when she was in Melivan's court, she actually planned a coup, but Lord Vile, Skulduggery's alter ego, betrayed her, and a bunch of bad shit went down, and essentially she has a type of immortality, and so essentially they actually carved out her heart and stuck it in a box. And that's how we end up with this whole situation. That's why everyone fucking hates each other. Okay. I think I cleared that up. Let's move on. That was like some Days of Our Lives shit. Oh, no, my mic's over here. That was like some Days of Our Lives shit. Alright. Valkyrie keeps having visions about Omen and his brother dying and tells him to lay low, and he just continues with his awkward teenage life. But somehow he keeps getting roped into these situations. He keeps getting roped into the greater plot of all these dangerous scenarios. Flannery actually starts slowly losing control of his power as someone new steps onto the scene. One Crepuscular Vise. I cannot say that name. Crepuscular Vise? Crepuscular! Yeah, there we go. Crepuscular Vise. Who basically steers him to betray his sorcerer counterparts, telling him he's being used, he's being manipulated, and they're going to double cross him, so he better double cross them first. Also, Vise is a freaky fuck. Vise is a creepy looking dude. Vise has no lips and no eyelids. His face has been like partially peeled away. That's gross. Derek, that's gross. There are so many overlapping storylines in this book because we are heading towards the end of the series. Everything's culminating, everything's coming together. Here with Valkyrie making a deal with Kaysen for information about Dr. Nee. Essentially, in order for that to happen, to get that information, she has to break into a magic insane asylum. And in that process, she actually gets caught and mentally tortured while there, before eventually being rescued by Skulduggery. And this mental torture follows her throughout the book. She really gets a number done on her in this one. She eventually tells Kaysen where the asylum is and for his information, for his information on Eve. Kaysen then actually breaks out his wife from the asylum. Valkyrie then kind of goes on a little bit of a rampage, stealing a Necronaut suit and breaking into the City of the Dead to help find a piece of her sister's soul, as well as a bunch of other small crimes and various shenanigans. It was she who revealed the location of the asylum to Kaysen. Pardon me. She is actually imprisoned under China's orders because it was meant to be secret. And she broke that. It's like state secrets. So she gets imprisoned, and once imprisoned, she actually ends up getting the crap kicked out of her every single day she's in there by those crooked cops at the start of the book that she tried to put away. They end up getting a role within the prison guard sector, and they come in and they kick her ass every freaking day. Moving back over to Sebastian, our plague doctor, and his little cult of weirdos, they actually find the dimension Darquist is in, and they end up having to smuggle Ashanta into the city of Rawhaven to then open up a portal so Sebastian can go through and find and convince her to come back. Does he? We don't know. Let's find out. What? The ASG the anti-sanctuary group, are actually the ones behind President Flannery's success and are planning an open attack on a naval base, catching it all live and then going to release it to the public. And Flannery activates a state of emergency with a whole bunch of anti-sorcerer tech and specialized squads to deal with sorcerers, all ready to go at the drop of a hat. It's all planned out. They've both worked on it together. This is the plan. The naval base is attacked by Abyssnia and her goons and the prisoners from Cold Heart. And of course, Skulduggery and Valkyrie, as well as Omen, getting mixed up once again, come to the rescue along with the anti-sorcerer squad. Now, they didn't come together. It kind of just all mashed up that way. Everything kind of just started domino affecting onto each other. So the anti-sorcerer squad actually tried to take out Abyssnia under Flannery's orders. He wants to double-cross her before she can double-cross him. After this huge clusterfuck at the naval base, there is a mad Mexican standoff with Skulduggery and Valkyrie on one side, Safina Day on the other, Abyssnia on the other, and Kaysen and his newly freed wife on yet another side. Kaysen, at this point in the book, currently hates his mother. Like, no joke, this poor kid has been literally lied to, betrayed, and tortured so many times in his miserable life from start to finish, like start to this point. It's unbelievable. His own mother betrays him as well. So there's this crazy Mexican standoff right at the end of the book with all these groups. Very powerful sorcerers, just finger on the trigger like crazy. So much happens in this book. So many questions need answers. What's happening to Alice's soul? What is the outcome of what happens to Augur and Omen Darkly? Especially Omen. We love Omen. Are they going to be okay? I need to know, Derek. Does Dark Quest actually come back into our dimension with Sebastian? So many betrayals in this book alone. I cannot wait to read the next one. I love this fucking series so much. I love Skulduggery. I hope you love it too. Go out, get yourself a series about a smart-mouthed skeleton and his young, beautiful, world-ending sidekick. Please, it's awesome. Do yourself a favor. It starts silly and childish because it was aimed at kids, and then it gets real fucking dark, real fucking serious. Go get it. I love it. I can't recommend it enough. Whew! That is all 12 books. I am done. Goodbye. I love you.